Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for a Series 2000 book called, it's number 14 by the way, Jekyll and Heidi, which many of you folks have wanted me to read this for a while. I've heard a lot of people tell me a lot of good things about this, and some people who said it was just fine. I've heard a lot of different things about it, and I've always been kind of curious about it. I figured I'd read something Series 2000 to have a nice dark entry to coming back to the channel after a month, because with October, I just wanted to watch a lot of stuff. Had a lot of things I wanted to do on other channels and whatever that I work on, and here I am. So, after a month of not really making any content for you guys, I wanted to tell you Happy Halloween late again, even though I put some community posts out there for you. I wanted to come back with something special. And I was going to do a Things Like Goosebumps video for Halloween Town. Man, the sun is bright. Jeez, I am sorry. If I start squinting a lot and look like Bruce Willis or Steven Seagal, I'm sorry. It's just the sun. It's kind of warm today, too. It's been really cold for like 2 weeks, and here we are. Warm day. Why? Why, God? Anyway, Jekyll and Heidi. Of course, we had a recent book that came out called Judy and the Beast, which a lot of us thought was kind of oddly similar to this one, even though I've never read this one. A lot of people seem to say that. The title was very similar. The setup was kind of similar, too. Of course, this book is a reference to The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from Robert Louis Stevenson, and I've read this short story before, and it's one of those stories that, kind of like Night of the Living Dummy, right? That when it came out, it was amazingly perfect. It was something people had never really seen much of before, and it was a fantastic read. I really, really love that short story. I think it's like 40 or 50 pages long. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it before. However, if you already know the case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, this isn't really going to mean much to you. It's well written, it's well done in execution, but when you actually experience it, you realize it's supposed to be a big old plot twist at the end. You know, the strange case that we're talking about here. So anyway, or Jekyll and Heidi, whatever. I keep trying to say Jekyll and Hyde. I don't know. It's kind of a throwback to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And me personally, I'm a big fan of that story, and I'm also an even bigger fan of my personal favorite version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as a tale is probably the I think it's 19... I dropped my phone. Let me grab that really quick. I am not organized, dude. As you can tell, I haven't recorded a video in a while in this format. I did some editing videos on another channel, and that kind of fell through because I couldn't really keep up with all the new releases and whatever. But anyway, my favorite adaptation is a silent film, as a matter of fact, starring John Barrymore, who is a phenomenal actor. You've seen him in a bunch of things if you watch a lot of older movies, even from the 50s. This 1920 film is called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I actually own it. It's about an hour and 10 minutes long, and again, it is a silent movie. And that movie scares me a lot. It's genuinely frightening. I think, personally, that it's scarier and creepier than Nosferatu, which I also love. It's not perfect, but I do love it. This particular Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movie is fairly close to being perfect, in my opinion. It has some small flaws, but for the most part, it's genuinely terrifying. I think the look of Hyde there is extremely, extremely scary. Anyway, I'm a fan, is what I'm trying to get to. And I was curious going into this, what is it going to be like? Is it going to be the Frankenstein's Dog from Most Wanted series? Is it going to be like one of these things that has a lot more focus on the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde storyline, or is it going to be kind of its own thing with a twist and whatever? And it does a little bit of that latter. You know, it tries to have a lot of throwbacks to that, kind of like Frankenstein's Dog, with a little twist in there. And I really appreciated that, and I actually really enjoyed that for the most part. Let's get to the actual plot. What is Jekyll and Heidi about? Well, basically, you have a young girl whose parents just died in a car crash, or some kind of car accident. They died. She's an orphan. That's the I'm not laughing at her. I mean that. I'm not laughing at her. I was just kind of shocked reading this book. I know Series 2000 can be dark. I've read about 15 or 16 of these books, and they can have a darker tone to them than a lot of the Goosebumps franchise. And going into this and finding that out in the first, like, 10 pages of the book, I was kind of shocked, frankly. Especially for a kid's book. Now, we have kids' books that have things like that, like the Narnia series, like the Harry Potter series. We have dark elements in children's literature, which I think is a good thing. This book doesn't shy away from that. However, this book is a little bit different from a lot of Goosebumps books, and I think to its detriment because of how modern audiences, or just audiences in general, typically are. Even the Goosebumps community, I'm curious what a lot of you folks really think about this in depth because of the way the story is told. This is not a straight-up monster story in your face. This is kind of an urban legend-esque type of thing, but not even in the way that I typically love, like Ghost Camp or You Can't Scare Me or anything like that. It's very much a different type of Goosebumps book, which was weird to me. Again, Series 2000, a lot of the time being a darker series, also seems like it's a more experimental series that kind of tries new things, and Stein really brings some highlight to that, I think, and this is a great example of that, even though it's got its problems, but that I'll save for later on. It's a spoiler-free review. Won't spoil too much for you. This girl gets into her parents get into a car wreck, she loses both of them, and she gets shipped off to kind of a small village somewhere else, and I don't know where this place is located. I think they mention it somewhere in the book. But she gets shipped off to live with her uncle Jekyll, and his daughter, I think her name is Mariana, I believe. And it's just them, but they're kind of rich. He's like a mad scientist type, but not really. He's kind of reserved, but we find out more about him possibly being more on the side of being a mad scientist type. Not that that's a spoiler. That's very early on in the book that we bring that up, out of this 117-page long book. Now, when she goes to live there, she sits at a bus stop waiting for her Uncle Jekyll to come get her. He never does, but she meets a young boy named Aaron there who tells her there's some kind of beast in the village that attacks people all the time, every night, pretty much, or at least once a week at the very least. And it's getting kind of bad. And the whole village, the villagers, again, very much like that Universal Monsters kind of tale, or like the old Dr. Jekyll tale from Stevenson, people are starting to get scared, and people are starting to think they need to take mob mentality out on this guy, or this beast, or whoever it is. They suspect it's her Uncle Jekyll. That could be this beast attacking the village. And again, the villagers are kind of sick of it. They're about to take everything into their own hands. It's getting bad. Now, when our main girl, Heidi, gets to her uncle's house, it's kind of like a castle mansion type of thing. He's very well-to-do, very rich. It's kind of tucked away on a mountain. Again, it reminds me kind of a Frankenstein-esque type of thing. All of that was really cool. I really like that and really appreciate it. And I love how Stein takes things from like the Universal Monsters and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like that classical Gothic literature like this, and does something like what he does here, where he brings all of those elements in to build an atmosphere. Again, this is not a straight up monster story where you're having a girl hang out in a graveyard on a dare by friends and getting attacked by a beast, and then she's being stalked throughout the book by a beast and keeps for some reason going out into the woods constantly to get attacked by the beast. That's not what this book is. Jekyll and Heidi is more of a very slow burn book. And again, being 120 pages long, a story flies by. You don't really have that much of a slow burn. But for a Goosebumps book, it really takes its time. And it really takes time to develop Uncle Jekyll. It takes time to develop Mariana, Heidi, all of these characters, even down to Aaron, the kid she met at the bus stop. It takes its time on developing all of these things. And that's for a good positive part of it, I think, that I enjoyed. But by the time I got to the end of the book, I feel like with the kind of ending that we got, and the kind of twist we got at the end, I feel like it really kind of collapsed in on itself. I really like the difference that this book has in execution. I like the new ideas, the new experiments, like I said, of trying to do something different with a Goosebumps formula. I like that. A lot of Series 2000 does that. This is one of the better examples of it trying to do that. But again, by the end of the book and the kind of ending we got, we needed a good 10-15 pages more, or even 20 pages possibly, to really round out and give a good, satisfying ending. We didn't get that here, and it's kind of a shame. It's kind of a shame in my opinion, and it really kind of let me down, because I was leaning towards a higher rating, and then it kind of had to drop to a meandering rating by the time I finished it just a little bit ago, because of how let down I was, because I was expecting so much more for such a slow burn of a book. And again, it's a very atmospheric book. I really appreciate that. A lot of people, I think, just in general, don't appreciate atmosphere building. And sometimes that atmosphere really turns a movie or a book around for me. For example, I love Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive. The first time I ever saw it, I hated it until about 3/4 of the way through, and then I got what was going on there, and then it turned the whole movie around for me. Now it's one of my favorite films of all time. There's another movie, Hereditary, if you've heard of that, a newer horror film from recent years. A great example, another film. I'm not in love with it. It's kind of scary, but kind of not. It's kind of goofy, but kind of not. It has some really good things in it. But the atmosphere, about 3/4 of the way through that film, really turned it around for me and really make me appreciate that film more, even though I don't love it. But I do own a copy of it because of how much the atmosphere really affects me. Not to the degree of something like Eraserhead from David Lynch, but it's still worthwhile watching just for that. You know what I mean? That's what I would say about Jekyll and Heidi. It's worth reading because of the atmosphere, because of the depression and the sadness in here. And if you don't like that kind of thing, maybe it's not for you. But for people like myself, who like darker media, who like darker entertainment, more thought-provoking entertainment, this is totally up your alley, man. It's not perfect. It has major massive flaws, like I said, by the end of it, because of the direction the story takes in the ending. Not that the course of it's bad, it's just I needed more. I needed more to feel satisfied with the story. And it's not one of those cases that I just want more. It's the fact that you do need more to really give an actual ending, and you don't really have that. It's kind of a shame. I wanted to love this more in the ending, but I can't. I can't because of what happened. Because of how it kind of meanders around being more atmospheric and then kind of getting a lackluster ending, in my opinion. It just kind of falls flat, is what I'm trying to tell you. Anyway, when it comes to Goosebumps Series 2000, number 14, Jekyll and Heidi, it's a really solid read. I wasn't expecting much by the things I'd heard. I wasn't expecting much with a kind of a Dr. Jekyll twist. I was curious what Stein was going to do. He's kind of tinkered with this sometimes, but he really pulled through in a cool way here. I liked how it wasn't too predictable, but even weird things like the interaction between Heidi and her cousin Mariana and how weird and reserved Mariana is, all of that just, I don't know, feels like there's a couple of fake outs in here too I don't really like either. It just kind of falls flat, as you can tell, as I've said constantly. If I had to rate Jekyll and Heidi on a 5-star basis, again, I wanted to rate it higher, but I finally had to settle at a 3 out of 5 stars. I wanted to give it a 4, but I couldn't do it, just because of how rough the ending is, how it needed to be more rounded out, like I said. But I think a 3 out of 5 stars, it's a high 3 out of 5 for me. It's very close to being a 4. It's very much a recommendation for me if you like more atmospheric horror, but don't be afraid to admit, or acknowledge, I guess, or really take into account that you're probably going to be disappointed with the ending. That's just my personal opinion of it. I would be so fascinated to go look at other people in the community's reviews of this book just to see what people say, because I can't be the only person who feels this way. I'm very curious to see what other people would think about how different this book is. It is different. That's the weird thing about it. I'm not one of those kinds of people who just celebrate something because it's different. It's just when I'm used to a formula in a series, and then we do something a little bit different, just to try something new, I appreciate that a lot of the time, and I feel like if it's done well, not like Halloween Ends, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that crap. When it's done well as different, that's kind of nice, and I kind of like that. But anyway, Jekyll and Heidi, 3 out of 5 stars for me. What do you guys think about Jekyll and Heidi? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What did all your, I can't think today. I'm so ready for the weekend. I'm so tired. It's birthday weekend too. I'm going to turn 28 on Monday. Oh my God. Wow, I'm getting old. Anyway, 3 out of 5 stars for me. What do you guys think about this book? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Put all your thoughts and comments down below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about Jekyll and Heidi. I hope to have a new review out for you sometime this weekend. I can't promise that for you, but I'm going to try. I'm trying to get back into reading more because I watched so much stuff. Plus, I got a Shudder account during October. I have watched so much stuff during October that I'm like burnt out on movies. I'm literally just watching this new complete series of Ed, Edd n Eddy that recently came out of Walmart. It doesn't have everything, but it has most things from that show. I'm watching that set a little bit and reading Goosebumps. That's really all I'm doing right now. I'm maybe playing a little bit of video games like Silent Hill 2 and Resident Evil 4 and whatever. But for the most part, I'm just burnt out on movies. I'm just kind of taking a step back from that, enjoying my time until Christmas time when I really delve into movies again. I got a lot of stuff I watch around those 2 times of the year. You guys know that. I've talked about that for years now. But anyway, Jekyll and Heidi, what do you guys think about it? Put your thoughts and comments down below again. I hope to catch up with you soon. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you had a happy Halloween. I hope it was safe, and I hope you had a good time. And thank you guys for watching. God bless you. Goodbye.